I asked you so many questions, but you never answered me correctly. All you did was tell me lies, telling me it was taboo, telling me I am still young, telling me it is for adults. You were so blind to see. I was bigger than I appeared. I was an adult while I was young. I was thinking as an adult, but still I didn't know, because of you. It started as a fling, followed by a kiss. We undressed each other, then we were on the bed, doing something I didn't know of, because of you. Later I realized I was pregnant and that I was sick with STIs and HIV. My dreams drowned into the mud. My future is now an imagination. It will never become a reality, because of you, my parents. So Malwandla wrote this poem as a reflection of what is happening in her community. Her peers are falling pregnant, contracting HIV/AIDS and STDs, dropping out of school, getting into forced marriages, and they're not pursuing careers in entrepreneurship. And I guess this is something that you guys might have also observed in the global village. How many times do you see the head of household consulting his daughter for advice? And the challenge, they say, is that honestly, girls aren't intellectually and socially capable of engaging their communities about issues that matter, issues like security enforcement or issues like identity transformation. But the truth is, we have made sure that girls are incapable of holding dialogue about these issues because we ignore the issues that girls face. And by ignoring the issues that girls face, effectively what we are doing is excluding them from contributing as members of society. So what is the real issue? The real issue is that we're making a lousy investment in sex education and social development. So sex education and social development. Okay, let me explain. This year, I partnered with the Good Hope Foundation in bringing Vigils content, Vigils being an American-based anti-violence movement I work for, to a school in the rural community of Justicia in Mpumalanga. And I wasn't quite sure about standing here in front of you guys and saying, you know what, the gender equality problem we have at girl level is because of sex education and social development. But up until I met the club at that school, the Vigils Club that is, I knew that this vision is a vision that needs to be heard and it's a vision that needs to be shared. So during my visit, I met 12 to 13-year-olds who were having sex and were ready to have children. And this is probably shocking for you, this is shocking for me, but it's happening everywhere. You can't really stop teens from having sex, but you can change the outcome of their sexual interactions by being open and by saying the things that need to be said. In a country where HIV/AIDS, STDs, and pregnancy are as real as they are, sex education needs to be as important as maths and science. Because a girl who is exposed to pregnancy, etc., because of sex, is cutting her future short, even before she has the power to decide who she wants to be. During one of my sessions, what I did is divide the club into 4 groups. It was a group of girls who are not on their period, girls who are on their period and not in a relationship, girls who are on their period and in a relationship, and then boys. And what I asked them to do basically is have conversations amongst themselves and then come to me and chat to me about some of the experiences that they've shared together and some of the myths that they've heard. And when I was talking to the group of girls who were on their period and not in a relationship, like me, one of them stood up and she said, well, you know, the first time I saw blood on my panty, blood on her panty, period. So I'm proceeding with caution for sensitive people. So anyway, the first time I saw blood on my panty, Busi, I really panicked and I screamed and I called my aunt. And she came in and I was hysterical and she was hysterical. And so she picked up her nephew to cuddle him for comfort. And the aunt grabbed the nephew out of her hands and accused her of trying to kill the little baby. And so she left for a school that day, not knowing what was happening in her body, except that she was poisonous, she could kill a baby, and she should never, ever play with boys ever again. Today, that is a 17-year-old mother to a 3-year-old baby boy. And I guess the question is, can you blame her? Can you blame someone who has never had someone to rely on for sex education on basic things like what a period is or how having sex during ovulation can make you a mom, for having a baby and potentially cutting her future short. And this is not an isolated story. I met about 4 to 5 other girls who were between the ages of 15 and 16, and they had babies. And they didn't even know what was happening in their bodies before, during, and after sex. In fact, most of them only found out they were pregnant later on in their second trimester. And I guess the challenge for them was they didn't have the resources to look after their babies. Needless to say, the liberty to take off academics to look after a child, being a child themselves. But the biggest issue and the most common issue that they all said to me that they face is relational aggression. The relational aggression they face from their communities. Because let's face it, a girl with a baby or a girl who's pregnant will always be judged. And then there's the issue of relational aggression towards girls who are not pregnant but want to protect themselves. One of the girls stood up and she said, Busi, I really wanted to take contraceptives and I went to the clinic, but I felt so uncomfortable when I got there and I just left. And she wasn't uncomfortable because she was the youngest girl waiting in line to get an injection. She was uncomfortable because from the minute she walked in and asked for information about contraceptives, she got looks from all the nurses. And they didn't say it explicitly, but in their community, a girl shouldn't make the intelligent choice of walking into a clinic and getting information about contraceptives and maybe getting on contraceptives, even though pregnancy is such a big thing in the country. And pregnancy can open up doors to so many things. She could always leave school if the pressure gets too much. She could be forced into a marriage, and that is a definite way of cutting her future short. Or she could be lucky and get, not get pregnant, but get HIV or get an STI or get an STD. And that's a whole new different ballgame on its own. So basically what I'm saying is a girl who is sexually aware of the self is able to even develop socially. And social development is such an important thing to me because it's so fundamental for the growth of a girl. So let's talk social development. Relationships, well, all sorts of relationships. How do you navigate around friendships? I don't know about you guys. I'm hoping you have friends. When you have a fight with your friend, it usually ends like, you're not a good friend, I am. And well, the question is, who is to decide the parameters for what being a good friend means and what being a good friend doesn't mean? We tend to think that because girls have a lot of friendships, they're able to circumnavigate around them. But that's simply not true. And that's the case for boyfriend and girlfriend relationships as well. In 2011, I was asked to speak at the TEDx Women event in New York City about girls and resilience. And I had the special honor of meeting the American-based author and activist Rachel Simmons, who spoke about girls and social interactions. And she was the first person I'd ever met who got on stage and said, you know what, all we're teaching girls is to be conventionally feminine, and that's nonsense. I agree. Conventionally feminine women, or girls rather, are fine right now because all they can do is refine their table manners, speak when spoken to, look good, get 50%, but those girls will face very conflicting messages when it comes to power and personal assertiveness at some point in their lives. Conventionally feminine women will never take up space in a boardroom simply because they're not used to taking up space and being aggressive. Before I met Rachel Simmons, I have to be honest, I thought I was completely crazy because I'm an aggressive girl, okay, assertive. I like assertive. I'm an assertive girl. And I talk a lot. I talk about everything and I talk about anything. And I'm the kind of girl who can say yes and who can say no, and no with a straight face, and no, I'm not going to change my mind anytime soon. And being that type of girl means that I'm not well responded to in the community. A girl must be intelligent, but not too intelligent, because then she will intimidate others. A girl must be active, but not too active, because she must still be sexy. That's the social psyche we are imparting to girls. Conventionally feminine women struggle with a number of things when they get into the workplace, like negotiating for a salary increase or negotiating for fair trade at a macroeconomic level. Because as teenage girls, they were never taught that innovation and being competitive is not a masculine thing. It's a normal thing. It's a good thing. It's something that they need to have. And so I kind of realized that the ability to kind of tackle serious socioeconomic issues starts with exhibiting healthy behavior now. It starts with giving a girl power in her interpersonal relationships. Because if she has that power now, she'll have the same power as a grown woman. And I guess what parents need to do is support girls like Malwandla. And instead of making sexual and social conduct punishable, they should look at it as stepping stones. So what am I saying? I'm saying that disengaging girls about social and sexual issues will have a serious economic consequence on this country. Because every girl who's forced into marriage, every girl who is pregnant, who has a baby, a second baby, a rape baby, every girl who doesn't have the access to contraceptives is a huge economic loss to her community. She will probably raise the same sort of girl child, which is not even making it better. What I'm also saying is that every girl who is not a good friend, who is not an assertive friend, an assertive lover, an assertive colleague, an assertive individual, will never be able to become a top executive in the workplace. Simply because, well, she doesn't see herself in that way. She doesn't associate power and aggression and competitiveness and innovation and politics with femininity. I'm saying to you that sexual and social development is a key factor that we have to use in developing girls. And it's not something that should be done by social activists or gender activists or social workers or girls. It's something that should be done by everyone. Because the liberation of girls today has a direct consequence on how society develops, on how the economy develops. And maybe that's something we should all start thinking about. Thank you.